that I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either.
What if Hollywood's biggest open secret were that you only succeed when you stop thinking for yourself? Ice Cube just cracked that code and dragged America's queen of daytime television straight into the fallout. He was born O'Shea Jackson in burn-scarred South Central, a place the Chamber of Commerce still pretends is only a dot on a tourist map. By 17, he'd weaponized street stories into lyrics that scared radio programmers and thrilled every kid who felt invisible. N.W.A. blew open the gates. Movie offers followed. Studio chiefs treated him like a human ATM. Yet the night he signed his first seven-figure check, Cube claims an executive whispered a line he never forgot. "Welcome to the club. Just remember who writes the guest list." A decade later, that warning exploded over a hypodermic needle. Sony dangled $9 million for a mid-budget laugh fest. Easy money, so long as he rolled up a sleeve for the new jab. Cube said no. The offer evaporated, and with it, the promise that obedience buys protection. Interviews turned into sound bites about an anti-science rapper, but the real casualty was the illusion that his seat at Hollywood's table was ever secure. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to torch bridges for sport. For years, he endured passive-aggressive studio notes. Could Cube soften that line? Maybe skip the political tweet during press week? He trimmed lyrics, dialed back posts, believing compromise bought leverage. Each concession only moved the goalposts. Executives who once praised his authentic street edge now asked whether he'd pivot to a faith-based family sitcom. He smiled in meetings but kept receipts, screenshots that shifted overnight from flattery to ghosting. Those receipts would soon become ammunition. Industry whispers marked the real fracture in 2017. During negotiations for season 2 of his Big 3 basketball league, Cube wanted the N.W.A. to cross-promote. He pictured alumni 3-on-3 nights at halftime, a farm system for retired stars still hungry to compete. The N.W.A.'s reply came via lawyers. Big 3 logos were suddenly banned from official social feeds, and arenas developed scheduling conflicts. Cube blasted them on Los Angeles radio.
Their brand of politics, I guess.
But if you can't think for yourself, then you're not really free, are you?
No, you're not. You're not. But I've been excluded. I've been excluded on Oprah. You know,
on Oprah.
On Oprah.
What platforms have banned you?
I've been. You know, I tried to go on The View. They didn't have me on The View.
Why?
Well, a few of the guests just really didn't like where I was coming from. So, or a few of the hosts, I mean. So that's what I was told by the producers. You know, I don't know if the producers was just copping out and using some of the hosts to not have me come on and explain myself, but I've been excluded. I've been excluded on Oprah. You know,
on Oprah.
On Oprah, yeah, I've been excluded. Yeah, man.
I would think you'd be the person Oprah would want to promote. I mean, you grew up in South Central. You were successful at a young age. You have dignity. You say what you think. Like, I thought that was the goal.
Me too. You know, I don't know what it is, but, you know, several of my, you know, I had a movie called Barbershop, you know.
Yeah, I remember.
That I wasn't invited to participate with the cast. I produced a show called Black White, and it was a very controversial show. And once again, they had the whole cast on, but I wasn't invited. And so I don't know.
On Oprah show. And whataboutism?
But I've been shut out. You know, some platforms will not have me on.
Why?
They don't like that I'm, you know, an independent thinker. I'm not part of the herd. I'm not part of the go along to get along gang, so to speak. So, you know, I'm an outsider. And so, you know, I'm not part of the club.
Accusing officials of calling sponsors to kill his bids. The league spoke in statements about brand clarity, but insiders called it classic gatekeeping. When the pandemic hit, frustration metastasized. He watched late-night shows beam in A-listers over Zoom while his own bookings vanished. He started impromptu Instagram lives at 2 a.m., ranting about algorithms and shadow bans. Commenters begged him for a podcast. He resisted, calling the format shouting into a void. The void kept growing until inevitably he shouted. The Sony jab incident poured gasoline on that fire. The rejected movie was slated for Memorial Day, with sequel options baked in, franchise money for a project he didn't even love. When the health clause appeared, he called partner Jeff Quatinetz, yelling, "They're selling compliance, not comedy." Hours later, the deal was dead. Tabloids labeled Cube reckless, ignoring he'd funded hometown vaccine drives 5 months earlier. Context, he learned, is contraband in an outrage economy. Deleted from the talk show circuit but not silent, he unveiled the contract with Black America in August 2020. 14 policy pages, line iteming tax incentives, bank lending quotas, and studio ownership targets. He offered briefings to both presidential campaigns. One declined, the other booked a photo op, then ghosted. Cable panels reduced the document to a meme. Rapper sides with the right. Commentators who once quoted his lyrics now called him naive, maybe even compromised. Hollywood hates paperwork it didn't write. Invitations vanished after that August. Cube's team pitched Netflix a docuseries on the contract's rollout. Executives loved the concept, then disappeared. A premium cable network demanded final cut privilege. Cube laughed them off set. By 2022, his phone rang only for independent podcasters, so he built the microphone himself. The Gatekeepers podcast tour wasn't just a logo, it was a mobile studio wired into an Escalade. Each episode opened with the low rumble of an engine, a visual reminder of motion. Tucker Carlson's cameo drove Cube down Crenshaw in a beat-up convertible. Blue Blood astonishment meets Boulevard murals. The clip went viral, repackaged by pundits on both ends of the spectrum. Next came Joe Rogan, 4 hours of unfiltered debate that outrated ESPN in the coveted 18 to 34 demo. Piers Morgan followed, then any host brave or desperate enough to stay live. Cube's rule was simple: I'll talk to anyone who lets me finish a sentence. Quick pause. If you're vibing with Cube's side of the story so far, tap like so the algorithm doesn't gatekeep this conversation, and be sure to subscribe for the next drop. While Cube's audience ballooned, Oprah's halo began to flicker. December 2023, Taraji P. Henson, exhausted from the press tour for The Color Purple, broke down on a live stream over getting paid a fraction of her white peers. The internet blamed the film's richest producer, Oprah, whose personal fortune could fund the entire shoot. 2 months later, Monique torched Winfrey in a stand-up set, accusing her of years-old sabotage. TikTok sleuths dragged out Oprah's 2007 Academy scandal and clipped it next to her 2018 Golden Globe speech. None of it sank her empire, but the algorithms detected blood. Rumors thickened. Unsourced screenshots floated through Discord chats, alleging Oprah once booked limos for underage guests at Diddy's legendary parties. No proof, but the screenshots were catnip for views. YouTube thumbnails plastered her smile beside handcuffs and red arrows. Fact-check debunks only boosted click-through rates. Controversy is a currency that inflates when debunked, and Cube noticed. His next podcast cold opened with him laughing. They say the gatekeepers are getting nervous. You can hear the keys rattling. That epiphany birthed new tactics. He partnered with blockchain devs to mint episode NFTs, backstage pass tokens that let holders vote on future guests. The pilot drop sold out in 9 minutes, raising $1.2 million. That bankroll funded a pop-up Big 3 tournament in Atlanta streamed free on decentralized servers. Major networks shrugged until the Big 3 Uncaged trended above NBA playoff highlights airing the same night. Advertisers noticed. Retention numbers turned executives pale. Cube's average viewer stayed glued for 9 minutes, an eternity when 8 seconds kills most clips. Meta's analytics team quietly tested ways to push reels faster. TikTok updated creator tips mirroring his cliffhanger syntax. Short setup, shorter spike, abrupt pivot. Cube never asked for royalties.
That I'm not part of the club. And a lot of you listening to me right here, right now, you're not part of the club either. And what I realized with the club is what makes them so mad is when you don't want to be a part of their fucking club. That pisses them off. What club am I talking about? I'm talking about the club of gatekeepers that we all got to deal with. You know who they are, and they definitely know who they are. A lot of people would be like, what? Who? Come on, man, stop playing. So, ever since I put out the contract with Black America, you know they've been with me. Here and there, this and that. But it's cool, you know. I expect that. You know, I've been working with, on the big three for a long time. And you know how they've been with me with that. I done made it, plain, simple, and clear what they've been doing. The N.W.A. been with us. Now, a lot of people might say, like, well, but Cube, you want to work with the N.W.A. Really, I don't give a about working with the N.W.A. What I want them to do, when I say work with us, is to stop working against us. Stop doing that bullshit behind the scenes that we know you're doing. Mainstream media, they ain't fucking with us. And that's cool. We can do it ourselves, you know what I'm saying? We still on the rise without these.
Being the template was leverage enough. Oprah tried Damage Control, a glossy CBS sit-down praising Taraji, a scholarship named after Monique's late grandmother, Instagram Reels about chosen family. The gestures landed like raindrops on a bonfire. Too small, too late, hissing loud enough to remind everyone the flames were still there. Legacy press framed her as misunderstood. Social feeds parsed every half apology as covert admission. Her once regal silence now looks strategic, even evasive. Critics hammered Cube for blind spots. His clumsy pigeon analogy about trans identity, jokes some called dismissive. He addressed it once. If I say something dumb, teach me. Don't muzzle me. Some accepted the olive branch. Others filed him under lost causes. Gatekeepers crossed their arms. Every apology created fresh spin, but none restored Cube's safe guest rating. By summer 2024, his independent revenue outpaced his last studio contract year. Fans dubbed themselves #GateCrashers, remixing sound bites into protest songs. A Milwaukee civics teacher assigned the contract with Black America as required reading. When the school board objected, students staged lunchtime sit-ins blasting Cube's Carlson episode on projectors. Local news aired it, national outlets ignored it. The clip still hit 1 million views. Inside Burbank boardrooms, executives hosted seminars on influencer containment. A leaked memo suggested signing outspoken artists to exclusive podcast deals before they pivot to adversarial monetization. Cube posted the screenshot with the caption, "Translation, back in the club or back on the shelf." 10 million impressions later, the memo's author resigned. Oprah too began pivoting. Insiders say her team scouted 11 Labs to launch 5-minute life lesson micropods, optimized for commuter attention spans. The move tacitly admitted a truth Cube hollered 2 summers ago. Raw immediacy beats polished sit-downs. Whether she can deliver without sounding scripted remains to be seen. All this turbulence boils down to one fact. For the first time, distribution is cheaper than silence. A smartphone and spare Wi-Fi outgun press embargoes that once cost millions. Cube capitalized early. Oprah, built on broadcast power, is pivoting late. The gatekeepers aren't merely people. They're outdated assumptions that visibility requires permission, which loops back to the club metaphor. Clubs survive because the line outside is long and the velvet rope feels special. If the crowd discovers a side door or realizes the party's dull, they vanish. Cube isn't trying to burn the building. He's blasting music outside to prove you can dance anywhere. The question is whether the people inside will keep pretending the bass doesn't bleed through the walls. Roll credits? Not yet. Cube just teased a docudrama titled Uninvited, found footage, interviews, and live stream breaks. Rumor says he offered Oprah an uncensored cameo, no word from her camp. If she accepts, it could rank with Frost Nixon. If she declines, the silence will speak louder than any appearance. Either way, the next chapter writes itself in real time. Gatekeepers brace for disruption, gatecrashers keep multiplying, and the rest of us must decide which side of the rope we're on when the spotlights finally swivel. Here's the final twist. When everyone holds a camera, the only power left is trust. Trust streamed, clipped, and replayed by strangers who decide if your truth survives the algorithm's chopping block. So the next time a late night host dumps a tidy monologue in your feed, ask who approved the punchlines and who got edited out. Then picture Ice Cube cruising down Crenshaw, lens pointed at a legacy anchor squinting into the California sun, and realize the club doors are already unlatched. All that's left is to push. Before you go, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your uncensored take in the comments. Are the gates finally coming down, or are we still dancing outside the velvet rope? Your voice keeps this story alive.